Welcome back, everyone. Pal Ponder on Weather here. In this update, we're going to be going over your June forecast so you can plan ahead and know what to expect. But first, let's take you back to the month of May and take a look at the overall temperature anomalies and where we stood. You can actually see further to the north, we had a lot of ridging for predominantly most of the month. That's where they've seen a lot of well above average temperature anomalies. Further off to the east, we did have a more troughing systems, more instability that came in, and that ended up being, slightly below average temperatures overall for the month of May. And you can definitely see more of the southern branch where things have rapidly changed with that coming El Nino that we've been talking about for a while now. And that's really starting to get a lot more pronounced, at least on the southern side. And that's where they've really overall seen more or less average conditions if you just average out those last 31 days. Well, let's take you through the precipitation front. You can see where we stand. I mean, this is pretty evident, folks. We've seen that, that persistent subtropical jet stream being more amplified by the day. And we've seen those well above average precipitation across a good part of Texas, especially the Texas Panhandle. Some of these areas have actually seen 15 inches of rainfall they ended with in the Texas Panhandle. That is just incredible. Some of these areas is higher than what they've seen for the entire year last year in all of 2022. So that is a big rapid change in development, and it's all compliments of this coming El Nino that it looks to be more amplified really by the day. But all those areas in brown, that's where you've seen some below average precipitation anomalies across the coastlines of the Pacific Northwest, but especially really evident across the Great Lakes up here in the Northeast and really across the Midwest regions. It's not really until you get further south into Florida where they've had these stalled frontal boundaries and back into these low pressure centers that we've been watching over the coming days, and that has increased the rain amounts for that region. But yes, definitely across the middle of the country, across the plains, they've seen well above average precipitation. And it's really, again, it's all compliments of this dramatic drop in the Southern Oscillation Index. Considering where we started the month of May, we were basically flatline, essentially zero. And where we ended up with, it's a negative 17, folks. I mean, things are just rapidly changing on that subtropical jet stream really by the day, and it's becoming more amplified. And as these systems come across, man, they've got plenty of juice to really fuel the fire down in the Pacific Ocean, and it's just dumping it over the same areas. And there is your Energizer Bunny, folks. That is your subtropical jet stream, just a persistent flow. So you can definitely see the steady stream of moisture here coming off the subtropical jet. And then you got the northern branch. So you got this little bit of a dip, right? So you got the ridging over the top that's built across the Pacific Northwest. Look where the jet stream ends up at, well north up into Canada. That just sets the stage for that flow all the way surging into the middle of the country, but then it dips back again with that ridging really starting to amplify and really starting to deepen over the Midwest. And that's where they've seen the coming drought, and it's getting more intensified really by the day. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns on North America, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel, and Father's Day is coming up. So if you are looking for a Father's Day gift out there, I highly recommend the Tempest weather station from Weatherflow. It's the best one on the market. I've literally had one myself for the past 3 years. I know a lot of people have actually taken advantage of this on this channel. I greatly appreciate it. But if you haven't picked up one for yourself or somebody yet, I highly recommend it. It's a 5-in-1 system, has a very convenient app and a desktop version as well. And I do have a discount code. So if you'd like to purchase one, here is the link, and then it comes with free shipping at checkout. So I'll actually have that in the description below, so you can actually easily click on it and possibly order one for yourself. So let's take a look at the overall temperature anomalies and the breakdown going forward. So this is your first week of June. So now that we're in June 1st time frame, you can see predominantly where we've had that just kind of these pesky low pressure centers off the southeast coast and the east coast. Overall, you got kind of an easterly flow, and that's on the cooler side, especially along the coastal regions. And then, of course, where you have that persistent subtropical jet stream, that's where you're going to be seeing that continued reinforcement shots of much cooler than, average to just slightly below average air, but definitely where you see the ridging developing, where you've seen that dip in the jet stream and then really amplified over the top, and it lifts all the way up into Canada and then comes back down up into the upper Midwest. Yes, that's going to continue for the first week of June. But out of the tropics, we do have a little system to talk about. In fact, the National Hurricane Center has upgraded to a 50% probability of a system down there in the Gulf of Mexico trying to form and in some sort of tropical type entity. It actually has an invest on it, invest 91L currently, and the hurricane hunters are actually going to go out there and check that out later on this afternoon. And it's only got about a two-day window if it's actually going to develop or not into a small tropical depression, but it's going to be meandering. These are the overall ensembles on the European EPS guidance. It kind of just drifts this system out in the Gulf. It likely extends it back into possibly Cuba or into the Bahamas here, but somewhere it reaches out here off the southeast coast. But again, keeps this whole area just kind of unsettled and a little bit more favorable for above average precipitation. Of course, then the cooler anomalies drift, onshore. So, but you look and see the precipitation over the next 7 days. And it's evident, folks. There's where the ridging develops off the coast. You do have that subtropical jet. Rain showers do come back for especially central and northern California, and that feeds into that subtropical jet flow across a good part of Texas, Oklahoma, into Kansas, across the plains here. And like I mentioned, with the jet stream just well to the north, that's going to really amplify and put this well further north into Canada. And then where the ridging is, you got a lot of sinking air. So you find yourself over the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley with desperate for rainfall, as the drought is really going to be really persisting out there. And then there's the coastal regions being, impacted from these little pesky low pressure centers. And really Florida gets hit hard with heavier rainfalls over the course of the next week. And then going into week 2, so we see the jet stream just lift a little bit further. What's going to happen to the northern side is that ridging is going to be backing off. So there is going to be a kind of a backdoor trough that comes in off the northeast that brings in cooler conditions for them. And as the ridge starts to retreat, and as it does retreat, that's going to put these higher than average temperature anomalies mainly across the north central Canada, and then up here into the northwest regions and into the Pacific Northwest and the Northwest Territory regions with well above average temperature anomalies. And then of course further south, you still got that persistent ongoing subtropical jet stream. And there's your temperature anomalies for week 2 heading in towards the middle of the month of June. Yes, with that trough coming in, you're going to be finding yourself, average to slightly below average with that consistent, steady stream of moisture and that flow off the subtropical jet. That's going to be putting our southern branch more or less just kind of average conditions, but below average predominantly over the west coast, the desert southwest. And of course, as that high pressure retreats, it's going to put the above average precipitation over Canada and down through, of course, across the upper Midwest again and across our north central states. And then there's the precipitation. So yeah, it just continues to amplify even more as this subtropical jet gets stronger. This steady stream gets stronger as well. So you continue to see this repetitive pattern going into week 2 of June, where this really dominant sinking air just continues to persist. And yeah, that's going to be taking its toll across a good part of the Midwest and the Great Lakes, where they're going to be seeing a drought really starting to, being more amplified in those regions, while the steady stream of moisture continues to be more amplified across a good part of Texas and across the Great Lakes here, and definitely concern. It's a compounding effect. I mean, some of these areas, like I mentioned in Texas Panhandle, we've seen 15 inches of rain. So I'm seriously concerned about severe flooding for those regions, especially as we head into June. I mean, this is not going to stop, folks. And there's definitely going to be areas where the lakes are filling up. And I know you guys are winning a drought, right? So this has been, again, this has been a rapid change. You've seen the dramatic drop. This is not normal. This is not typically what you see with this onslaught of, 3 years in a row with La Nina, and then just the rapid development all in a month. So yes, definitely you're going to get extremes like this. And this is exactly what's going to unfold. So definitely concerned if you're living up here in the Texas Panhandle. Trust me, you've already seen a lot of rain. I mean, that's just kind of what's to come for the month of June. I mean, you can see the latest update for the drought outlook for the month of May that just updated yesterday. All these areas in yellow, that's where you're going to be seeing that drought develop, right? It's where the more ridging is really going to be taking place. There's not much really, a lot of sinking air in those regions. So that's just going to be, that rapid onslaught of the drought, where at the same time in the middle of the country where you've been in that severe and that extreme type drought, with the rapid change like that, some of these areas by the end of the month, you're talking complete drought removal. That would be a dramatic change, and that could actually unfold with the compounding effect of what's to come for the month of June. And some of these areas obviously will still continue to be slightly in a drought, but dramatic improvements over the middle of the country across the plains regions where you see these brown shaded areas. That's where the drought more or less persists, with again over that ridging and not expecting too much rainfall in those regions. But as we head into that third week in June, yes, it's getting towards summer, right? So we're going to be seeing a little bit of a ridging starting to develop across the Northeast, across the South. Not too dominant. I'm not talking about any death ridges type development starting to take place, but you are going to be seeing average to slightly above average temperatures start to unfold as that jet really starts to lift a little bit further north. So we do find ourselves with the P&A going negative in that time frame. So that's going to put more or less the cooler anomalies and shift them back into the Pacific Northwest. And again, the steady stream of moisture that's going to be coming off that subtropical jet stream is going to put this cooler than average anomalies across a good part of Utah back into portions of Colorado. And you can definitely see that on the temperature anomalies, right? So you've got that ridging starting to come back. You've got the below average temperatures pulling into this is the third week of the month of June. Again, the ridging over the top comes back down underneath. So, and then, the upper Midwest still continues to remain well above average, and we start to warm up a little bit down here further south, but still overall, these areas are going to be fairly wet. It's going to be hard to heat up in those type of atmosphere in any big way. And you can see the drop in the P&A, right? So this is why we've got that troughing out west. So the dramatic drop by the time we head into week 3 of June, that puts that cooler anomalies across a good part of the west, while much of the east is above average or just slightly above average. And you can definitely see by the time we head into week 4, that little subtropical flow lifts a little bit further north. But again, further south, that we don't really see any just type of any significant type of ridge, because you're going to have a steady stream of subtropical jet. I mean, so where the most active, most highest above average temperature anomalies are really going to be highlighted over the Great Lakes and over the Midwest regions, where there's just going to be a compounding effect as the soil continues to dry out. Those temperatures are going to be continuing to go up, and well above average temperatures by that time frame. And so again, you're going to be seeing as we head into week 4, where you see the well above average temperature anomalies up here across the Great Lakes and to the Northeast, across a good part of the upper Midwest. Further south, again, you've got more intrusions off the subtropical jet stream. and then where the troughing is, that you find yourself with the below average temperature anomalies up here into the Pacific Northwest. But what you typically look like as we start official summer, right? Heading into your summer solstice, this is what you would typically see around that third week of June. By the time we head into your June 21st timeframe, a lot of people move around, so you might not know what normal actually is. So normal for that time frame is low 90s essentially across a good part of the South and the Southern Plains. I'm at 105 in Phoenix. That's basically average for them, right? So 100 is a cool front, for them. But the Pacific Northwest, you should be experiencing, really nice conditions into the 70s for that time of year. And again, further north, your normal across the Great Lakes is about 70 degrees. Your normal for the Midwest is in the low 80s. So yes, when you're seeing a well above average temperature anomalies, these temperatures are likely well into the 90s, or some days pushing upper 90s, right? So that's what you're going to be finding as we transition into week 3. And then as we close out June, again, we kind of see that kind of the same type flow. So with the negative P&A, we still have our below average temperature anomalies out across the Pacific Northwest, but you're still going to be having that evident flow, that steady stream of moisture. And these southern areas, again, are going to be kind of hard to heat up in any stretch of the imagination, especially comparison to last year, where it's just going to be kind of a dramatic flip, so I'm not seeing any type of death ridges or anything like that further south. I mean, it's everything's above average is going to be over the top across the Great Lakes into the upper Midwest. And you can see the breakdown over the next 30 days. And this is how we're going to unfold. So the cooler air, easterly flow overall puts average to, average conditions across our eastern states and in parts of the Southeast, as well as into more or less Texas and across the desert Southwest and across the steady stream. And where you see the ridging, that's where you're going to be seeing the above average temperatures, right? So again, a good part of the Pacific Northwest, a good part of the Northwest Territories, up into Canada, drops down up into the north central states, across the Midwest, across the Great Plains, and across parts of the Mid-Atlantic, overall for those 30 days. And here's the precipitation front. Again, the kind of the same thing where you see that ridging really unfold. That's where you're going to be seeing the drier overall average conditions, especially the highest probability is going to be over the Great Lakes and over the Midwest regions, while further south, where you do have these low pressure centers, these stalled frontal boundaries, you're going to be overall seeing above average precipitation across these regions, across the East Coast and across a good part of the Southeast, across the Southern Plains, and across a good part of, the desert Southwest, for them being above average, and across portions average to just slightly above average across portions of the West with that steady subtropical flow. So guys, I appreciate you guys following. Do follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I update on those platforms on a daily basis. So, and catch me next update. Definitely subscribe to this channel as well, and catch me next update where I protect you for and after the storm.